Okay, this session is being recorded. Good morning. It's November the 12th. We're in the Cisco Ely Integrated Instructional Learning Environment at South Campus, and I'm going to step through this lab 6.8.2 on the network address translation feature in the Cisco 4 curriculum. So first of all, we got recording. We are recording. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is set up the two switches. And then I have to switch out to swing my cables over to the routers. I'll set up the switches with the telnet function so we can tell it into them. I won't have to swing cabling anymore. So I'm going to jump to page 3 of the lab, the middle of page 3 of the lab, and get the basic configuration going on these switches. These switches appear to be erased. There's no VLAN.dat file present, and when you do show start, there is no startup configuration file present. So I'm going to follow the procedure here and go to the global configuration mode and give this first switch a host name of S1. Give the command no IP domain lookup. So any errors in entering don't hang up. And for those of you that are watching the recording, here's the answer to the number C. How do I assign class as the privileged exec encrypted password? And the command is enable secret class. You have muscle memory for that. Now line console 0, password Cisco, and log in. Move this over here where I can see it better. Takes care of the console port. And then I'll go line VTY0 through 15 and do the same thing because we want to be able to telnet into this later. Now this particular machine is this particular switch, interface VLAN 1, is supposed to be given an IP address of 192.168.1.12. Correct from the front page? Oh, I'm sorry. That's a typographical error. The first switch is 1.11, and the second switch is 1.12. Do a no shutdown on that VLAN port. And then we have to also do the command IP default gateway, so that has connectivity with the other networks. And the master router in this one is the 192.168.1.1. And I'll save that configuration. Now I'll go back and repeat those steps on switch 2. Switch 2 is given the normal prompt. It looks like it's been erased toward the bottom of your screen now. I'll say no. He has an annoying Cisco annoyance thing that pops up here in a second. I'll go to the privileged exec mode or the global configuration mode. Host name of S2. And then we'll do the password. Line console 0, password Cisco, login. Line VTY0 through 15, password Cisco, login, and that should allow our telnet logins from later. And then I'm going to give him an IP address of the switch is supposed to have switch 2, back here you. Okay, configure terminal, interface VLAN 1, IP address 192.168.1.12. Oh yeah, the IP default gateway command. So configure terminal, IP default gateway 192.168.1.1. That should kind of switches enough. I'll save that configuration. And now I'll be able to swing my cables over to the routers. And before I do that, I'm going to go to the, just to prove we have connectivity here, I'm going to go to the VMware machines. And I should be able to ping the switch addresses from the VMware machines because they're plugged right into the switches. 192.168.1.11. Will it? Will it? Will it? And it's okay. The first one was due to ARP. And now 12, the second switch. And that's okay. And the PC should also be able to ping his other PC. This is PCA, and PCB is 192.168.1.2. He can ping those just fine. So we have good connectivity between PCA, PCB, S1, and S2. The two routers are unconfigured as yet. I cannot ping my default gateway. That won't work. Okay. Now I'm going to swing my cables. Swing my console cables. So this looks like the default prompt for a router that has no configuration. He's asking us to go into the initial setup dialog. We're going to say no. It takes a second usually, so I'm going to go ahead and go to that. Do them both at the same time. And I'll jump back to page 2 of the lab where we actually start configuring the routers. It usually takes a second for him to go through this. Looks like Linux booting up, and he puts a bunch of lines on the screen. Okay, default router. I'll go to the global configuration mode. Oops, better go to the privilege exec mode first. Configure terminal, host name R1. No IP domain lookup. Errors. Enable secret class is the secret answer to that question on page 2. Line console 0. Password Cisco. Enable logins. Then line PTY 0 through 4. Password Cisco and login. I'm going to skip a couple commands here for the purpose of just getting through this lab for the demonstration. Now, here's a gotcha in the lab. The interface port numbering on the lab 4000 series Linux machines, routers that are actually running Linux. It's not quite the same as the ones we have here. If you're doing this at home on Packet Tracer, you can specify the 4000 series and it'll match it exactly. If you're doing it here in the lab, it's G00 and G01. So I'm going to R1, I'm going to go to interface G0/0. Changes to config-IF. And my IP address is given as 209.165.200.230. Does that match on the that's what's on the front page of the lab here? R1 is 209.265.200.230. Okay, good. There have been a couple of errors reported to me in this lab. We already saw that error with the switch. And subnet mask is not the standard subnet mask. It's a smaller network, 255.255.255.248. So we're only going to have 6 addresses that we're going to use for dynamic NAT. I'll do a no shutdown on the port. And I'll go to interface port G0/1, not G001, but on our physical routers here. And the Cisco ELI is G00 and G01. And he's given the IP address of 192.168.1.1. 255.255.255.0. That's our master friendly neighborhood router, our default gateway router for our switches and our PCs. Do a no shutdown on that. And then we're going to configure a default route. So I'll go to the clean global configuration mode and IP route quad 0 and 209.165.200.225. is the next hop IP address for that default route. So anything that's not specifically in the routing table will be sent to that next hop address. Okay, I'll save that configuration. And he's going to have us configure R2 later. Okay, so I've done the switch 1 and switch 2 configuration. Let me do a test here now. I'm on R1. I should be able to telnet to the switch address, which is 192.168.1.11. Oh, bad magic. I might have to swing cables. Oh, there it is. Okay, Cisco, enable class. See, I'm logged into switch 1. I'll log back out here. I just want to check and make sure. I want to have to go back to switch 1 and switch 2 later. We're going to do a ping test from them to test our network address translation. Okay, so now I can skip to page 4 of the lab, part 2. We're going to start configuring some network address translations on IP version 4. So I'm back at R1. Let me log out and prove that I'm not in some super telnet here. I'm really at the console connection of R1, and I'm going to make an access list. Oops, I'll be in global configuration mode. Configure terminal. Access list. 1, the standard access control list. All we need to do here is create an access list that these addresses are to be permitted to be added to the outside world. So we will permit them. And if you're in the network 192.168.1.0 and you're 192.168.1.anything, 0.0.0.255, you are to be permitted. Okay, now we got a nice long address. I made an error in this when I was typing it before. I'll make sure I spell it correctly. Okay, IP, Nat Pool. And this is public underline access. I misspelled it before, it gave me problems. 209.165.200.226 through 209.165.200.228 net mask of 255.255.255.248. And if I did that without any errors, it should pop up good. Okay, right. Okay, so what I just told it to do is when we do this NAT function, we're going to give these public outside addresses from 226 to 228, that's 3 addresses, to my internal clients, and then we're going to test it. We're going to try 4 internal clients. The first 3 will work, the 4th one will fail because the first 3 have already hogged all the connections. Okay, so the next command is IP NAT inside, IP NAT inside source list 1 pool, caps lock. And I got to spell public access very carefully because I have to match the previous one. It won't work. Okay, so now we got to do is mark our ports as being inside by ports that are inside our internal private network 192.168 and the outside port that will go to our ISP. So in this lab, R1 is our corporate company router. R2 represents the ISP that has globally unique public IP addresses. So I'll go to interface G0/0, right, 1, G0/1, IP NAT inside, and then we'll go to interface G0/0 and IP NAT outside. Oops, I misspelled NAT. You only do what you tell them to, not what you want them to. Okay. Now we're going to do the command show IP NAT translations. Oops. Did I forget to turn on one of my interfaces? Show IP interface brief. Show IP interface brief. And G00, down and down. Oh dear. Hang loose one. I've forgotten to plug in a wire or something somewhere. So G00 goes to R1 to R2. G00 goes to R1 to R2. Oh, I haven't configured R2 yet and shut down its port and done do a turning on its port. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go to R2 and bring that port up so this port can come up and up. Here we are on router R2. It looks like it's completely unconfigured. I'll go to the privilege exec mode. I'll do a show star. He has no configuration. Show star. He has no router. He has no nothing saved in the NVRAM, so we can put our configuration in. So configure T, hostname R2, and from the chart on the front page, I'm going to go to interface G0/0 instead of G000 like he says, and give him an IP address. 209.165.200.225 and the subnet mask. Open at this, do a no shutdown. And then we're going to create a loopback port on this router, which can simulate the a public address on the internet. So interface loopback 1, loopback loopback ports, I don't need the no shutdown command because they're born alive. IP address of that loopback port is given as 209.165.200.1, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.254. Oops. Got it, period. IP address 209.165.200.1, 255.255.255.22. Okay, so if I do a show IP interface brief to check my typing, 209.165.200.225 is up and up for the. Now I'm going to do the show protocol command because that one shows the subnet masks, the slash numbers, and you can't see that in show IP interface brief. So R2 is supposed to be 209.165.200.229 with the slash 29 subnet mask. That's correct. And the loopback is supposed to be 209.165.200.1 with a slash 27, and that's correct. Those are consistent with that. Okay, now I should be able to go back to R1 and do that translations thing, and it would work properly. So another typographical error, they forgot to tell you to set up R2. Show CDP neighbor. Am I saying R2? Oops. Show CDP neighbor. I'm saying R2. Okay, good. RR translation is not working. Let's see. I'll do a show run. Did I forget a statement here? Okay. Access list 1. IP Nat Pool. Public access 209.165.226. 209.165.228. That's correct. NEC mask 255.248. That looks correct. IP NAT inside source list 1. Pool. Public underline access. I spelled that exactly the same. I added the static route. IP access list 1. Permit 192.168.1.0.0.0.255. And did I do the inside and outside ports correctly here, or is that another typographical error? Gigabit 00 is IP NAT outside, and gigabit 01 is IP NAT inside. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Let's see what's missing here on R2. Did the enable secret class. Did the loopback. So we'll go to R2 and do some troubleshooting there. Show protocols. Show protocols. And R2 loopback is 209.165.200.1. That's correct. And his G00 is 209.165.200.225. And that's correct. And everything appears to be up and up. Fine. So what's going on here? Why are we having an issue? Okay, go back to R1. So IP NAT translations. No action taking place. What's the deal here? Show IP NAT statistics. It looks like it's been applied properly. The pool is there. Let's go to the next step and see if we do a ping if it forces it. We'll go to PCA, and we're supposed to ping 209.165.200.1. It works, it works, it works. It worked, it worked, it worked. Okay, now let's go back and see if we are able to see that translations table. There's our translation table. Okay, good. We just need to kick it with that ping command. Oh, good, good. So it seems to be working okay now. And we're also supposed to do it from PCB. So I'm going to go to the VMware, go to PCB, and ping that same address, 209.165.200.1. And the first ping usually fails due to our. Okay, good. That's working as well. Now, when we repeat our show IP NAT translations table, we see the two translations. Oh, good. This is working okay. Now we're going to go to S1. So let's see. Can I do this from here? Can I do telnet S1's address from the PC? We haven't tried that. We're going to get daring here. 168.1.11. Is that S2 or S1? S2 is 1.12. Okay, Cisco. In commands, you don't have to be in the privileged exec mode. You can do it from the user exec mode. And I'm supposed to ping 209.165.200.1. And it worked after the first thing. Now, let's jump back. Let me see, I'll log off of S2. That will repeat show IP NAT translations. We have our three translations. Okay, so we've done from PCA, we've done from PCB, we've done from S2. Oh, I did it from S1 instead of S2. Okay, I'll go to S1 this time, and it should run out of addresses. So telnet to S2, telnet to switch one, telnet to 192.168.1.11. Cisco ping 209.165.200.1. Oh, look, it fails. Undeliverable, undeliverable. Oh, no, what's going on? Well, it was supposed to be that way. I only created a dynamic pool for 3 addresses, and they're all in use because of the previous pings. And they hold on to it for 24 hours by default. So the 4th one was supposed to fail. Okay, so it's working properly. Okay, now we're supposed to go back to R1. Let me actually go back to my R1 prompt now. And we're supposed to type the command show IP NAT translations verbose. Translation verbose. It's a typographical error. In the text, it says type show IP NAT translations verbose. It's show IP NAT translation verbose. You cannot put the plural on the translations. And here we have our verbose translations of the 3 things that we took place. Now, at the bottom of page 5, I need to clear all these translations out, and there's yet another typographical error. I'm going to go clear IP NAT translation star, and that wipes out all the translation table. And then we're also going to clear IP NAT statistics, because we want clean statistics. Okay, now I'm on top of page 6, and I'm going to remove that translation command, because we're going to put in the overload command, port address translation or NAT overload, and that will allow as many connections as we'd like. So first of all, I need to take away the one that was there before. So go to the global configuration mode. IP, no IP NAT. No IP NAT inside source list 1 pool. And I got to spell it exactly. Oops. I have caps lock stuck on, sorry. Click, underline, access. That removes the previous statement. Now, step 2, toward the middle of page 6, we got to add the new list. IP, NAT, inside source list. 1, pool, public, underline, access. And believe me, if you misspell this in one place, another place, it won't work. I guarantee you. Overload. Now, this means then they only got 3 outside physical addresses. We can share them with port address translation feature and get as many as we want to. Okay, now we're supposed to type command show IP NAT translations. Haven't anything yet. So from PCB, I'll go back to the VMware PCB. I'm on PCB, and I'm supposed to ping that. Oops, I'm still telnet into the switch. Sorry, let's log off of the switch. Here we go. Okay, so PCB, the translation appeared to work, and if we go back to the router to configure this would I show up in that translations command, there's our translation that took place. So there's some questions down here that I already filled out. You'll have to answer those. Okay, now I'm supposed to go to PCA again. So we'll go to PCA and ping that loopback address. Translations once more. There's our two translations. Now we're going to blow his mind. We're going to go to these PCs and we're going to say ping -T, which means ping forever and never stop. 209.165.200.1. And I'm supposed to do this from PCA and PCB. Ping -T 209.165.200.1. And then I'm supposed to go to the R1 and look at the show IP NAT translations. Those are still going, so those are still pinging. Okay, so let's stop the pings on this one. Stop the pings on this one. And we're going to go back to R1 and we're going to clear our translations because we're going to do our third NAT thing. So he's instructing us to clear IP NAT translations, star, and clear IP NAT statistics. And now we'll go to the config mode and we're going to get rid of that to no IP NAT inside source list 1 pool public underline access overload. And we're going to get rid of the no IP NAT pool IP NAT pool public underline access. And now we're going to add our new overload command. Go back to config mode, IP NAT inside source list 1 interface G0/0 on our router, or if you do it on the Linux packet tracer one, it would be G000. Okay, show IP NAT translations. Now we're going to generate a traffic, and we're going to go back to PCA and PCB and repeat that endless generation of pings. Okay, and then let me see if I can go to. Should I be able to? Let me go into this router here and use it to telnet into the switch. So telnet, the switch 1. Which am I supposed to do? Switch 1 and switch 2. Okay, we did PCA and PCB with the -Ts. Oh, S1 and S2, we're supposed to do it on those as well. So I can telnet to S1 first, 192.168.1.11. Oops, I can't reach them. Oh dear, I have to go to R1. So telnet to 192.168.1.11. And we're going to ping. I could use this extended ping. I got to use the enable command. And we're going to give the command ping 209.165.200.1 repeat 2,000 times. And then I'll log off of here and go to switch 2 and do the same thing. 192.168.1.12. So enable that LASS. Oops. I locked myself out of my own router. Oh, I didn't do, maybe I didn't do a password on that one. Okay. So, stop all the pings. I'll stop the ping on PCB. Stop the ping on PCA. Go IP at translations. And we see our translations in there. That's good. So we verified the static NAT is working. Okay, good. All right then. I'll stop the recording now.